I think one of the things I dislike the most about the woke basket of ideas, I don't even, I'm using the term woke as shorthand because I
Sure.
think people know what I mean. I'm talking to the basket of whether it's critical race theory, critical gender theory, the transgender ideology, cultural Marxism, this whole basket of ideas. Everyone is either an oppressor or, the oppressed type of narratives. Um, One of the things I find most insidious about it all is that it weaponizes and hijacks human compassion.
Yeah.
So if you think back to that strange sort of BLM summer of 2020, they prey upon people's compassion for sort of destructive means. I mean, firstly, to grift and take millions of dollars and use it to embezzle.
Yep.
But most people people want to be good people and they want to be seen as good people. And most people in our modern societies, thankfully, actually do care about racism and want to stamp it out. They do care about police brutality and want to stamp it out. They do care about sexism and want to stamp it out, and homophobia and all these other isms and schisms, unfair discrimination, mistreatment of people. That's a compassionate thing to not want that and to want to stand against it. So when you come out there and you say that, okay, hey, white people, if you are not explicitly anti-racist, it's not good. What they say, it's not good enough to not be racist. You must be explicitly anti-racist. You must be working to dismantle capitalism and abolish the police and, minimize yourself while maximizing this other group of people, or you need to actually treat your black friends differently and you need to see race. And you're telling people that, hey, to be a good person, not good. You've been running on colorblind for decades. No, that's wrong, Aubrey. You need to see race and you need to start training, right? Like they're drilling that into people in schools, in colleges, whatever. And so that's what it results in. All of a sudden, people are walking around, like even with their friends they've been friends with forever, people they're playing basketball with, and they're like, do I need to do this differently? Do I need to consider this? Do I need to think about that? And it just makes everything awkward, and everyone's walking on eggshells, don't know what words to say. No one's trying to offend everyone. And it's like, this is the opposite of what you need. What you actually want to do is for these, again, treat people as individuals. And then all of this stuff just sort of fades into the background. It's always there. Like colorblind is a bit of a funny term because it's not like literally true. Like we have eyes, we see what people
Sure.
look like, but seeing what someone looks like, you want it to fade to the level, as I said, like eye color. Right. That's really where, in my view, like there's people who would push back against this, right? The identitarian types, but it's like, that's really where you want it to be, where eye color, hair color, where you're walking down the street. Oh, that guy's got blonde hair. That guy's got green eyes. That guy's got brown eyes, whatever, or height. Like the way, like no one's going to treat someone different because of their eye color or their hair color. Like the thought of even doing so is absurd. Right. Or being like, and this cuts in different ways. This cuts into the DEI direction, right? You're hiring people for a position, and you're like, we've already got 4 people with blue eyes. Like you're really qualified, but you've got blue eyes, bro. So
you're a bluey,
yeah,
bro.
yeah.
You
Like
understand-
we
you understand this.
yeah. Like
You
it's
don't
just
understand this green-eyed plight.
yeah. It's all just silly. It's just like, man, just hire the people who are qualified and the best people for the job, and let the chips fall where the chips fall. And I do think that there is, I call it the racism industrial complex, because racism is not dead, but it's been on life support my entire life, right? Like it's not, again, it's a human sin, so it's always going to exist to some degree.
Sure.
But it's been on life support for ages, and there are people just there with the metaphorical defibrillators, just trying to bring it back. And there's an industry around it. There is a whole racial grift industry where people make money by nonstop fanning those flames, reopening old wounds, constantly talking about things that happened before any of us were even born, not so that we can learn from them and not repeat them, but to make people feel either guilty or that they are still right now oppressed. and to have some type of animosity or resentment towards people who look a certain way because people who looked a certain way centuries ago did something bad to someone who looked like that. Like it's crazy. Like I don't know much about my family history beyond my grandfather, right? Great grandfather. You know, my family's from Nigeria. I would wager just on statistics, I am 99% certain I have an ancestor somewhere, a great grandfather, great uncle somewhere who did some heinous crap.
Yeah.
Right. Statistically, it must be the case, right? Imagine Western Africa in the freaking 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, 1800s, all raiding and pillaging and wars and slavery. Like, I don't know. I could be the descendant of someone who was like a slave trader. I could be. I don't know. It's quite likely. I could also be a descendant of someone who was a slave. Like they could both be true.
Mm-hmm.
What have those got to do with me? Nothing. Should I feel guilty for it? No. Should I feel like I'm right now, like I'm oppressed because of, like, no. Should I have some animosity because maybe I could trace back and there's someone who's alive right now and I could be like, hey, your great grandfather had my great grandfather murdered or put in chains or whatever. Like, and I put the blame on you. Like, it's so silly. It's absurd.
Mm.
It's just like, look, this is where we are now. It's very good to know history. We should all be not trying to diminish it or pretend like these bad things didn't happen or whatever. But the idea that you put the blame on people who didn't even exist at the time when it happened and who didn't do any of those things, that you blame them now. If a 37-year-old bearded bald black man in Miami runs out right now and does like some terrible thing, and then they come and arrest me, people would be like, that's not him, bro. Like, that's not the right guy. And everyone would recognize that, hey, that's an injustice. They're like, well, he's bald, he's 37, he's black. You'd be like, wait, bro, but that's not the guy who did it.
Yeah.
And people do this historically.
Yeah.
People are doing this historically. And it's just like, what are we doing? And perhaps most importantly with this all, what are you instilling in children? You know, I don't know how you grew up, but where I grew up in both Saudi Arabia and in the UK, race, ethnicity, all that stuff, it was a nothing burger. No one cared. No one cared. No one talked about it. I was never sat down and told, oh, you know, Zuby, you're a black boy, so your life is going to be so hard and you're going to have to work 10 times harder than everyone else. And you're going to have to like fight against the systems and the structures and the institutions and, you know, white supremacy. Like, I didn't hear a peep of that. None of my white friends were told, oh, like you're somehow guilty for the sins of ancestors or this or this or this. And we all just got along with each other. We just had friends. Kids don't care. By default, kids don't care about any of that stuff. And that's how it should be. So I don't like this idea that people are teaching in schools and teaching in universities that, okay, like these are the classes of society who are privileged. These are the classes who are underprivileged and oppressed just by dint of who they are. If you're on this side, you should have some type of guilt towards here. If you're here, maybe you should have some animosity or resentment towards people. That is, I don't use the word toxic often, but that's like, oh, super toxic.
Yeah.
If you were to raise a generation with that like instilled into them, then they're not going to be happy. They're not going to be paranoid. They're not going to get on well with each other. It's going to manifest in a lot of ugly ways. And I wouldn't like to see that. We've been trending in a good direction. So let's keep going in that direction. Like, we worked out the solution.